Today, what I want to talk about, it's one of those mysteries that are hard to understand. It's something that is a mystery of this world, and I don't know much about it, but I will try to speak what I know, and we pray that God will give us grace, because it's important. What this topic is very important. And it's one of those topics that there are some topics that are very deep and you go into it knowing it's deep, but then there are some topics that have so many levels of understanding, so you have a certain understanding about it and you think that that's all there is to it, but then you realize there's deeper things to it. So what I'm going to talk about today, it's something that you can measure but you can't explain even if you try, and it's something that can be used to explain things, but you can't explain it, yet it controls everything. And it's something that is so familiar to us that we use it every day, but it is still so unknown to us even though we know it every day. What I'm talking about is time. Time. The issue of time. It's something that we know, or we think we know, because everything in life is dictated by time. The fact that you are here listening to me and I'm able to speak to you is because there was a time for this, and I was able to send that time, and you were able to understand that this is the time. But yet, if you ask what is time, nobody can explain what it is. But you can use time to measure something. You can use time to function and to operate. When children are taught things too, one of the first things that they are taught is how to tell time. And it is part of the learning process. So we're going to talk about time and why it's important, not just to understand time, but to know how to act with it, how to control it, and not have it control you. So time is not just a mystery. There are some things that are a mystery, and we unravel the mystery through revelation. But with time, there are mysteries in time. Time is not a mystery, but there are mysteries in time. So the teaching today, I will call it Commanders of Time. The teaching is called Commanders of Time. Now, to go back to the basics, we can understand that eternity controls time. And eternity is what put time in this realm, which is the earth. So eternity controls time. And time is a part of eternity. But eternity is bigger than time. And this realm was created with time and the things that determine time. This realm, which is the earth, the physical realm, was created with time and with things that determine time, or elements that determine time. So for example, when I say elements that determine time, these are things like the sun, the moon, the stars, the way the earth moves and revolves. These are determinants of time. So these things are only connected to the earth. If you go to Jupiter or Saturn or any other realm, those places look at time in a different way, and time is different on those places. So now, to not be controlled by time, you have to step out of time. And why is this important? Because in this realm, whether you know it or not, you will be controlled by time. As long as you are born, you are going to be controlled by time. And listen to this, even other inhabitants from other realms, if they come into this realm, they are subject to time. So you can be in a country now and the time zone may be different. But when you go to another country, the time zone may be 6 hours ahead. And so now you are subject to a new time. So spirits are beings not only of this realm, but they came into this realm. Spirits are from another realm. But even the spirits that come here are subject to time of this place. That's why the demons told Jesus, our time is not yet come. But the time they were talking about was not referring to their time in eternity, or it's not referring to their time in everlasting realm, but it was referring to their time on this earth. There was a specific time even for them that were not subject originally to the time of this place. So we are controlled by time, whether we like it or not. And to not be controlled by time, now we have to step out of time. And one way to do this is to disregard death. One way to do this is to disregard death. If you know there is a part of you that is eternal, and we know this because the spirit is eternal, so if you know that there is that part of you, then you should know that that part will endure time, meaning it will endure what is in time, like death. So you have to have the knowledge that you will endure, and it's just this physical body that will fall away. And once you start to think along those lines, you will start to move in the direction where you are not controlled by time. The least spiritual people, the ones who do not understand the spirit, these are the ones now for whom death will be bigger than it is. I'm not making light of death. I'm not making light of people who have lost loved ones to death. I'm not making light of the grief of losing loved ones. No, don't get me wrong. That is part of who we are and is a reality of where we are. But what I'm talking about is something else. So understanding time is very important for your life and for your walk with God and for the ministry that you do for God and for everything. You have an angelic encounter now also because of the way that time works. So the realm we are in is different from the realm of the angels, which is different from the realm of God. Now, this is a very deep area I'm not going to get into, but I will just say angels have to pass through a barrier to get here. To have an encounter with us, angels have to pass through a certain place. They have to pass through time. They have to come from a place with different time and pass through time in order to get here. Why is this important? It's important so that we know how to work with angels. This is what the book of Daniel shows us. The angel was released as soon as he prayed, because he was praying in a way that connected to that realm outside of time. But still, the answer had to come within time, and the angel was held. So, time has a lot of control over us, and it has so many mysteries. Have you ever noticed some days go very fast, and some days go very slow? Some weeks go very fast and some weeks go very slow. We say this, all of us, every week we use these phrases. We say, I don't know where the time went. This year went by so quickly. It's already November now. I thought it was just Jan. All of us say this. Every day we say these things. At work also we say, oh my God, how did the time fly? I haven't seen you. It's been so long. Everything. If you start to now think about everything we speak, you will understand how much we talk about time and how much we are controlled by time, whether we like it or not. So time has a lot of control. Some days feel like they are like 3 or 4 days, and some days feel like 2 seconds. So time, even though we may think it's the same, from the physical standpoint, we may think time is the same, but no, it's not. The time of yesterday was different than the time of today. And and it's shown in how we experience day to day. So some years go by faster and some are slower. If you talk to older people rather, and the more old we grow, each of us, we realize that people will say, the older I'm getting, time is going by faster, and that's very true. When you're a kid, a day seems longer, and a year seems longer, and the things that you go through seem more significant, and you can actually perceive it differently or experience it differently. But when you grow up now, the way you perceive time also changes. It flies by quicker. So there's a lot that the Bible also speaks about time and how we need to think of time and what we need to do with time. We all know this verse in Joel 2. It says this, I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, cankerworm, caterpillar, palmerworm, and so on. Can everyone go on mute, please? So what it's saying is, there's a measure of time called the years. And there is a possibility that the years can be eaten. How can years be eaten? Because it's a spiritual thing. It's talking about something spiritual. And that means you have a measure of time that is years for us as humans. These years, it can be eaten. And we know that the worm that we know, caterpillar, they can't eat your years. They're an insect you can step on. So we know that there is a time it can be eaten, and it's eaten by certain creatures that are spiritual. And also from this verse, we know that what has been eaten can be restored. Then when we go to Ecclesiastes, book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, it says this, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose. Meaning, everything is not just flowing. Everything has a season. For you to know this knowledge, there is a season. And a time to every purpose, meaning your purpose in life, your purpose from God also is determined by time. There's a time to every purpose. Meaning that same purpose in another season, it's not time for it. So if you miss the time that has your purpose, you miss your purpose. Many on the call are in that boat. It's very important to understand. There's a right time and a wrong time and an opportune time. Remember when Satan tried to come and tempt Jesus, he tried and tried and tried and it didn't work, and then it says he departed from him until a more opportune time. It means that there is this time and then there is time A and time B. Time A can exist for you and you may want something, but it's not the opportune time. Whereas time B may contain what you want and it is opportune, but the question is whether you know that or not. So in other words, trying to do something at the time when it is not the opportune time may not work. And the opposite is true as well. Is this making sense so far? Okay. Now, there are three forces that control our universe. I said time is a controller of us and of this universe, of this realm. There are three forces. These are time, space, and matter. Without this, there would not be a universe at all and nothing would exist. So everything created for this earth and to this earth is bound to these and only exist because of these three forces. So for example, if you had matter but you didn't have space to put it in, that matter cannot exist. Anything that occupies space has to have matter, because matter is what fills a space. If you have space and you don't have anything to put in it, it is still nothing. Now, if we find space that was filled with matter, and we know that nothing just exists ever created, that means there was a time when matter was put inside the space. Anyway, I won't go deeper, but you can, in your spare time, you can think of these three things and how they work together. So time is a force, and time has control. Time rules in this universe. Time is actually an entity that rules in this place. Everything in the spirit is an entity. Even hell is actually a creature. Hell is a being. Just like that, time is also a being. It's an entity that governs this realm. That's why, all the ancient civilizations, they understood this, but they went and started to worship some of this. That's why they call it Mother Nature and they call it Father Time. So, time has control over things in this universe and in this earth. And since time has control, time is the one that determines how long something lasts and when something is destroyed or decays. It's called the entropy of time. So you can take a loaf of bread, which is matter, and you can put it on your countertop, which is space. You take matter and put it space. Loaf of bread on the counter, and it can be there. But time is what determines what happens to that bread. Time doesn't let bread stay the same. So when you come in 2 weeks, that bread has mold on it and it slowly decays and gets destroyed through decomposition. So time is what determines life. Time doesn't let things stay the same in this realm because time controls everything. It's the same force now that is exerted on human beings as well. So now you start to see the gravity of these things, the importance of time, and why you need to control time rather than be controlled by time. Now, time controls other things. Time controls money. Money doesn't respect people. Money doesn't respect political powers. Money won't respect you until you learn to understand the force that controls money, which is time. If you don't respect time, you start to lose money. That's why people say time is money and they pay you according to the time you spend. For those who studied finance, we call this the time value of money. In simple terms, we explain it this way: the value of a dollar today is not the same as that value of the dollar in 3 months from now, even though it's a dollar. Why? Because a dollar today, if you invest it, it can produce something more. So it has the ability to be more 3 months from now. So you can never consider money the same today as you consider it 3 months from now. So when we are trying to figure out the value of something, when companies are trying to figure out the value of things in the future at the present time, they factor in this effect called the time value of money. So they calculate the value of this money in the future and they bring it back to how much it's valuable in the present time. Because in the present time is where you make the investment. Easy way to think about it is, like if you have a dollar today, you can buy something. That same dollar can't buy the same thing in 6 months. because the value of the dollar is changed. Now that same thing costs $1.50. So even your workplace, they expect you to be on time because they lose money when they lose your time. You can't see this in minutes or in seconds at the time, but over time, later you will start to see it. So time is a force that controls. And the Bible tells us there is a time for everything and there's a season for every activity under the heavens. Now understand this. Things can happen outside of their allotted, appointed time. I think I did a teaching in the past called Times and Seasons where I talked about appointed time. So I won't talk about that today. But you have to understand something can be outside of its due season. When things are done outside of their due time or season, it upsets something in the person's life. This is very real. Without an understanding of this, one will face setbacks in life and you will never know till you resolve this issue. Some of you were not born at the right time. And that only that one reason is affecting everything in your life. This is why all the other people understand, because all of this is spiritual. I'm not going to get into astrology and all of that, but the other side, they understand these things. That's why the first thing they will do is they'll check when you were born and they'll do it according to that. We are not supposed to follow some of those things that way, but it's true and real. That's why some of those things they say are very real. They say all Libras or all cancer people with cancer, they behave in a certain way. We'd never follow those things, but it's very true. If you check it, everyone born like that will actually behave in that way. Why? Because I don't want to get into that, but the way they were born, the time they were born, the season they were born, everything determines your personality. So you can be born outside of the right time and it will upset everything in life. So you will face setbacks. Even that term setback is referring to being something out of time. I faced a setback, meaning you lost something that had to happen in that time. So time has now been set back. That's why we use the term, we set our clocks, set the time, set the right time. Those who operate in places where they have to change the clocks based on the seasons, we set ourselves back, then we set ourselves forward. So now, if there's a setback because of time, you have to now correct what has been set back. You need a time correction, just like setting the clock to the right time. 2 weeks ago, there was a storm here. And there are several appliances now in my place that have the time, right? The cooking stove has a time. It has a display with the time on it. The microwave, it's digital, so it has the time on it. But when the storm came, I lost power only for a few seconds, 5 seconds. That 5 seconds when we lost the power, it messed up the time. And all the time now had to be reset. So there was something that happened, a power that caused a time to be affected, and I needed to reset the time. So you have to understand with life, what time am I in? And what is supposed to happen in that time? Birth has a time, and death has a time. Your birth had a time where you were supposed to be born. If not, you were born outside of your time and your life gets messed up. This is what happened to the guy that was Saul. He was born at the wrong time. And because of that, his life was messed up, even though his assignment was from God. So he had to have a reset where the light hit him, like a power hitting him, that reset his time, and he became Paul, the one he was supposed to be. It's not me saying this, it's Paul. 1 Corinthians 15:8, he says, "Last of all, as one untimely born, he appeared also to me." If you check another translation, it said, as one born in the wrong time. But he studied it and he understood what happened to him. That's why with Abraham and Sarah, God says, "I will come at the appointed time." In the sight of God, it wasn't old or it wasn't late. See, we think that something happened and Sarah had some issue and it was the wrong time. No, it was the right time for them to have that baby. And many people who are supposed to be born are supposed to be born to women who are 50 or 60 according to God, but they close up the possibility in different ways. Everything had to have a time. Ishmael had to be born at that time. Why? Because later on, for God to save the Israelites out of Egypt, he needed a guy called Joseph. Joseph needed to be betrayed and sold to who? To the Ishmaelites who would take him to Egypt. So everything depended on a certain time. If that had happened when Abraham was 27, it would have messed up God's plan. Never look at things you don't understand in this world and say, "Oh my God, that one, it didn't happen that way." No. All these things are orchestrated. There are many babies who are supposed to be born to women who are not married according to God's plan. But the church and the world will look down on the person and say they have made a mistake, but when God sees it, it's right. Read the Bible. Read the Bible, you'll find all the examples of this. Who came from whom, how they came. Check Jesus' bloodline. How many non-conventional things happened. All these things are orchestrated. Isaac was supposed to be born only when they were at that age. That's why it says the appointed time. Otherwise, the Israelites would not have gotten out of Egypt. So you have to understand the time and what is happening in this time, rather than sit and cry that something is not happening or something is happening. So earth has a time, death has a time, crying also has a time, everything has a time. If you do something outside of the prescribed time, it messes you up. Let me show you very clearly. Please, what I'm teaching is important. It's not something I'm pulling out of thin air. It's something you have to now start to live by. Weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So weeping has a time and it endures only in that night. The reason why your joy is not coming in the morning is because you're weeping in the morning. Please understand, the reason why many people's situations hasn't changed because you're doing the wrong thing in the wrong time. I'll show you how Jesus also knew this, and he lived every second of his life with this knowledge that you're getting. We just said this was, weeping endures for the night, joy will come in the morning, Jesus is more powerful. These are nice words to hold on to. It's not bad to feel encouraged, but these are deeper mysteries of time. That's why some of the greatest people, you check how they were born. They were born out, that woman was not even married and everybody threw them out and all of that, but the child was born. I think one of the greatest composers, Mozart or Beethoven, one of those also was like that. So if God now orchestrates that thing to happen, you can't stop it. So we have to move from the stupid carnal understanding and start to think with the mind of God. Because when Isaac wasn't born, all they were doing was cry to God saying that the one is not born. They couldn't understand. So we have to get the spirituality of these things. You will get that crying now has to be done in the night seasons. You have to even know when to cry and when not to cry. That's why in Ecclesiastes says, there's a time for weeping, there's a time for mourning, there's a time for laughter. There's a time you should be quiet and you should not say anything. There's a time you should not laugh like a fool and be solemn. But when we are led by our emotions, when we are led by what is happening around us, we fail to realize this. But when we are led by the Spirit, we'll understand what time is, what is the time now. If you're truly led by the Spirit, you won't be led by past knowledge alone. Past knowledge will be there just as a knowledge bank. If you say, no, it happened like this in the past, so I'm going to do it this way, then you've cut out the ability for the Spirit to lead you. So you have to understand every day what purpose is going to find its time today. But how many of us start the day like that by asking the Holy Spirit, what is going to happen today? What should I do today? If you can come to the point where everything in your life is led by that. So crying outside of the appointed time makes your crying to endure. Because when you cry in season, it ends with the season. When you cry outside of the season, it can make you suffer for long seasons when you're not supposed to. That's why when someone dies who is very close, there's a grieving time. There's a grieving process. And that's important. It's important. But have we all know people who didn't stop grieving? 5 years later, they are still sitting in that time. And you will find those people, their entire life now gets ruined. Because there was a time for weeping. But they brought that outside of its time and made their whole life about that. I'm not putting people grieving, no. I'm not putting that down. But there's a time. Now with this knowledge, go and read all of Jesus' words. It will blow you away. How much he used time. He started also by saying, it's not yet my time. Then it's my time. It is not time yet. He was following a predetermined timetable. He had to be killed at that time. That's why he was perfectly okay with killing people and violence. He said, bring swords. He was okay with killing people as long as they came against his purpose. But once he came to Jerusalem, he knew now he was in the right time. He said, no need for violence anymore. The same guy who said, bring some sword so that we can deal with certain people, then later on said, don't, and he healed the guy when Peter cut the ear off. He didn't let anything mess his time up. These are arrangements of God we must try to understand and follow. God didn't say don't cry, but there's a time for it. Even when they came and asked, why are the disciples not doing these things? He said, when the bridegroom is with them, it's not yet time. A time will come. Everything, a time has now come when true worshippers will worship in spirit and truth. Everything is ushered in by specific times. If you don't do what you are supposed to do in the time you are supposed to do it, what should come to you will not come to you. And that's why prayer doesn't help. In the absence of this knowledge, we simply go like dogs and always praying, crying to God without spiritual intelligence. And then we get mad God is not answering. Instead, we should understand these things. A lot of the delays are due to one missing the time or mixing up the time. There are moments to keep your mouth shut, but the person talks. There's a time to eat, but you are fasting. There's a time to fast, but you are eating. If you're one that goes by the Spirit, you'll say, the Spirit led me to fast for 3 days. If you're a person led by your stomach, you'll say, it's Christmas Day, we all have to have a big feast. Because you're led by the world. I'm not saying necessarily those things are bad. No, you should enjoy your life. You should celebrate. I'm just making a distinction between what is leading you. Jesus was a master of time. He was a commander of time. He was a controller of time. That's why he took only 3 years. I said, when it's your time, and nothing can stop you. And when it's your time, the supernatural speed will be crazy. But most people don't operate like Jesus did. Jesus had only 3 years. He was a man. He knew what to do, what not to do. But many people are working so hard and striving and producing nothing. Jesus, even though he had a huge assignment, he didn't always work. John 9:4, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. So he's saying, I must do this. Everything that's in me is focused on doing the work that God has sent me to do. But I won't do it always. I'll only do it while it is day. Because in the night is not the time to work. According to spiritual laws, the night is not reserved for work, but the world has gone there, so there's a lot of confusion. Everything's messed up in this world. Some things must only be done at night. Some things must only be done during the day. But we are messed up and mixed up, and what should be done in the night we do in the day, and what should be done in the day we do in the night. But the night is when no man can work, but men try to work. So in the night, you never see Jesus healing people in the night. He slept or he woke up early to pray. You don't see him healing, you don't see the miracle at night, but he says, I'm doing the work of my Father. When was he doing his assignment? During the day. I taught in the past about different watches of the day. There are times to do certain things, even to pray for certain things, there's a specific time. There's a certain time to war. There's a certain time to intercede. So listen, some miracles can never be done in the morning, but you are trying to force a miracle in the morning. That's why it never works. Why? Because some things are tied to the sun. Some things are tied to the moon. Some things have to be cast out during the day. Some things can only be cast out during the night. If you check research, most accidents happen during the full moon. Most satanic activity and occultic stuff is done by the full moon. Most people go insane, or if you're mad, they go extra crazy during full moon. It's all controlled by cycles. Women are controlled by cycles. Men have a different cycle. So if you are dealing with what needs to be dealt at night during the day, you won't be successful. There is an arrow that flies by day that you can't deal with at night. This one can't fly by night. Psalm 91 verse 5 says this. Thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, or for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. That's why when we teach watches, we teach what is the noon watch? What should you do then? What should you do at 3 o'clock? It's all different. Some things you only deal with in the night. If you've seen the movie Lord of the Rings, there are these evil creatures that they cannot stand the sun. So when they forgot and they were in the battle, and the people that were on the side of good were battling them, and they were almost defeated, when the sun came up, all these evil creatures lost their power. With this knowledge today, go back and read the Bible. It will blow you away. How much we missed. And just make a note. Take a notepad, start to read. Pick any book in the Bible. And just make a mark for every time you see a mention of time. And things associated with time, like years or seasons or anything like that. So these are spiritual things. This is not making things up. So sometimes only working in the night, even what you make doesn't go anywhere. So time is a controlling force and we cannot take it for granted. God put it into this earth. And it's embedded into the fabric of things in this universe and on this earth. Even soil. Some of these science knows now. Science has explained it. Even soil. Now they have found out that the food we eat hardly contains any nutrients. The soil should contain something like 70 or 80 different nutrients and minerals. Now it's hardly 1 or 2. God designed the land, the soil, to be self-sustaining. Because remember, I taught before, God made everything self-sustaining. That's why He doesn't come and create a new tree every time a tree dies. He puts seeds in the tree. He puts seeds in man. So it's a self-propagating mechanism. So now, whether you buy organic food or whatever, the soil is not healthy because the soil doesn't contain those nutrients. Because God made the land to be self-replenishing. So if you read what God was telling the Israelites, He said, let the land lie for X number of years. Why? Because it had to replenish. But now man wants to make more money and all of that. So once they get this harvest, they immediately sow another crop. And immediately when that finishes, another one. So the land never has time to replenish itself. It's over-farmed. So the food and even the water has been stripped of all the good stuff. So now we take other supplements to balance it. So God places things embedded into this. Now, the devil operates at night so that he can hide his ways. The thief never comes in the morning, but in the night. Meaning, the night has a certain characteristic. The night is a covering. So God creates everything with a purpose, but the enemy takes that purpose and perverts it. So night is not evil, but night is something that hides something. That's why it says under the cover of darkness. All these terms we use are deeper than what we think. So there's something that night covers and the devil slips in through that. So there's certain things that happen at night. And Ecclesiastes talk about even to cast stones, there's a time. So when you're outside of your timing, there is a spiritual chaos that causes things to be messed up. But when we observe time, when we know what it's about, now we start to take more control. Write this down now. Time holds your destiny at ransom if you do not respect it. Time holds your destiny at ransom if you do not respect it. Today, by the grace of God, is going to be a great day because I'm going to show how to redeem things. I'm going to show how to make us commanders of time. Time holds your destiny at ransom if you do not understand or respect it. It's why we don't know that there are delays in certain things. It's because we are disobedient to the timing. So God created everything in this world to function in time and according to time. So to know when a thing is supposed to do will determine its capacity and the ability of its functioning. Let me repeat it. To know the timing of a certain thing determines how well it functions. When you begin to discover timings, you will see yourself manifest in an unprecedented manner. You will do things you could not do before because now you're functioning in your timing. Let me give an example. Some people here I've been raising, and I tell them now it's time to stop learning. It's time to go out and heal people. With the knowledge they have of the time that they are in, they go and by God, they start to heal people. And they come back with the testimonies. Oh my God, it happened. And it's so great to hear it. But what made them function in that capacity was me speaking the word that put them in their timing and gave an understanding. Otherwise, those 3 months would have gone no matter, because time doesn't stop. Those 3 months would have gone and they would have not healed anyone because they didn't have knowledge of what was supposed to happen in this time. This is why we need to understand our time and timing. The people who understand time control things. In 1 Chronicles, let's go to 1 Chronicles 12. One Chronicles 12:32, it says this. And the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their command. Issachar is not one of the tribes that come to mind first. We think of Levi. We think of other big tribes that had prominent things. But whenever anybody in Israel wanted to know something, they would come to a man of Issachar. Even priests. Why? Because they knew the times. Because they knew their times, all the brethren were at their command. So they could command everyone because of their understanding of the time. There is your purpose that is hidden in time. Jesus. So anyone who understands time and the function of time in every purpose becomes a person that can control life. You'll be able to understand things that others do not. And those who can master time are the ones that lead nations or companies. They don't play with time because they understand that time is a controlling force, and unless you respect and control time, things will get messed up. We need miracles because time has gotten messed up. Do you know what a miracle is? A miracle is something that is needed when your time has passed. A miracle is something you need because your time has passed. Everything that is supposed to come to you, God makes it so that it comes at a certain time. And this needs to change how we live our lives. So before that time for something comes, you have to prepare for it. You have to ready yourself. You have to increase your capacity. But most people are trying to force the time because they are frustrated that something hasn't happened. So they neither control the time, or neither do they use the time before the appointed time in a productive way. Example. Let's say God is going to use you when you hit age 45. According to God's destiny for you, that is the time you're going to start. By the way, if you look at history, most of the most powerful people in the world started only after 40, 45. Warren Buffett, the guy who created Walmart, all of them started becoming very successful only later. So don't worry. Some people think, oh, my time has passed. No, don't do that. If you're in your right time, in 2 years, you can accomplish things that will change the world. Jesus only had 3 years. We're still talking about him. He changed everything. Okay, you can say Jesus was God. Okay, forget Jesus. Take any of the apostles. Take Paul. He was a man. He was not God. But we are still talking about him. Many things we do are led by what he wrote. He probably had 15, 20, 30 years, whatever. So don't worry about what has gone. But it's very important while you're waiting to prepare yourself, to ready yourself, to become someone that God can use. This is the problem. Age 45 hits. Now God puts anointing on the person, but the person can't handle it because they didn't spend time preparing. They were too busy for 45 years being frustrated and trying to force the timing when it was not their time. So they didn't prepare themselves, and when God put the anointing, they didn't develop their capacity. They didn't develop their ability. So they were not able to handle the attack of the enemy, and they fell. But God did what he was going to do. God put the anointing. God gave everything. But God can't come and do certain things for us. We have to do it in our time. I know this because for 2.5 years to 3 years, God only told me, read the Bible, fast, pray. Read the Bible, fast, pray. I didn't try to go and teach. I never tried to preach. I never tried to pray for anyone. I just read the Bible, fasted, prayed. I just knew. And even now, I'm just doing this on Zoom because there's a time when I will be outside of this. It's not time right now. And I'm okay with it. I'm not trying to go out and set some meeting and try to gather people. No, I know my time for that. And I'm secure with it. Many are like, oh, you have these teachings, why can't you go and do more and all? Many people will be blessed. No, it's God told me this, right now I need to do this. I'll obey that. When the time for more comes, in the meantime, I'm preparing myself so that I will have the ability to do what God wants me to do. But now, a carnal way of thinking and insecurities of our soul will say we need to do more, we need to do more, we need to do more. Even if it's a good thing for God. But even Jesus, though he had an assignment, he said, I will work during the day. These things are difficult to live by. But it will make sure we do things the right way. Don't care about people who look at you and say, nothing's happening, nothing's growing, whatever. If you know that that's the time for you to be hidden, be content. So that when the time for you when the time comes for you to come out, you will not come out like a fool, not knowing how to speak. In the meantime, learn how to speak. And in the meantime, God will teach lessons. So many are trying to force the wrong time and they mess up. Now, you have to understand that what the darkness uses, the light also uses. And what light uses, even darkness uses. So we have to be observers of time so that we can control the times. There are patterns of things that happen, and these patterns give us certain knowledge of what to expect because patterns repeat. But we have to be able to observe patterns. In order to observe patterns, you have to know the times. Many people keep falling in the same circle and go round and round, but they didn't stop to observe. If they just stop to observe, this is the trap I fall, then next time they will make sure they don't fall. But most of us just go round and round without observing. You have to know the times. You were born now for a specific time. Why were you born now and not in 1560? Why? It's because you were meant for this time. For those born there, if you take that person out of there and put them here, they won't be able to survive. They won't understand. And for them, that life was a good life, even though there was no electricity. Every purpose is unlocked in time. And there is a time to every purpose. Whenever you are looking at your time in life, your purpose is made manifest by understanding the time you are in. So this is how we start to become commanders of time. When things become chaotic in your life or stagnant, you have to check what is happening with this time. Now, when you can control time, you can transcend it. When you can control time, you can transcend time. Our understanding of time has been very basic. Many people live and die and that's it. Let me change something else about the understanding of time. What are generations? People think generations are when you have one person, that's one generation, then you have the child, that's the second generation, they have the child, that's the third generation. No, no, it's not true. That may be true in the physical world, but it's not true spiritually. That's why sometimes if you're casting a demon out, the demon will say, I've been here for 500 generations. But if you check the time, there are not 500 generations. Generations are different spiritually. Let's go to Genesis 6, I'll show you. Genesis 6, verse 9. It says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and he walked with God. But it's talking about the generations of Noah. If you understand this spiritually, you'll understand that he had 3 generations in one man. In the spirit, generations are dimensions you walk in. In the spirit, generations are dimensions you walk in. Most people only have one generation of their life because they only live that way. But you move from one generation to another generation in your own life when you move to another dimension. At the first, Noah was not walking with God, but then he walked with God. Enoch was another man that walked with God. Noah had different generations in his life. But this is why you need someone to teach. I'll explain what the generations were. This is why you need someone to teach. It says, when the child, when he is of age, he is put under tutors. A tutor is one who knows and has experience in something and can teach you from that. The people that never grow in ministry, the people that never grow in their understanding of God and their purpose, are people that think that they can hear from God directly and that's enough. That's why the people who do every week Bible studies, they will never walk in their purpose. They will be studying the Bible their whole life. Listen to me. God doesn't raise people outside of coverings. A spiritual father or a mentor or something like that. Your destiny depends on it. But people are too arrogant. They say, I will do something for God. I don't need. God will tell me. I'll pray. I hear from God. Who are you to tell me? Okay. Carry on. God bless you. Carry on. I can guarantee you, you will live your life useless. It's because it's the pattern of God. And then there are people who have someone to learn from, and you see them accelerate. Many of you have spiritual fathers or people who you sit under. Some of you is me, some of you it's others, doesn't matter. But if you take two people, one who only does Bible study and go to church every week, but you have another who doesn't even go to Bible studies every week, but they have a spiritual father who can unlock their purpose, this one will accelerate 1,000,000 times faster than that one. Why will you choose the path of stagnancy? It's a no-brainer. See, age in years has nothing to do with age in knowledge. You can have knowledge of centuries by living centuries or by understanding how to tap into that knowledge. And obviously, most of us probably won't live 500 years. So why will you think that I will just do it by myself and try to get this knowledge? Why can't you just do a shortcut and take it from someone who has it? These are deeper things. To understand the ancient paths, to understand these things of centuries, you need someone. Luke 4:5, it says, the devil took him to a high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. There's no mountain on the earth that you can see all the kingdoms of the earth. This is in the spirit. All the kingdoms of the earth in a moment of time. Devil went to a place outside of time in order to show everything in time, so he went in the spirit. There are mountains in the spirit, as we know. In time, you cannot do this. You can't go to the top of Mount Everest and see all the kingdoms of the world in one moment of time. First of all, if you're on top of Mount Everest, you'll just see clouds. These are spiritual things. This is how the prophetic operates, by going outside of time to see what is in time and to move things in time. So in old days, people would go and sit under someone who's an expert. There's a master and an apprentice. Even in many civilizations, the students will take care of the masters in the house, take care of his clothes and food and all of that. And the master would teach the apprentice the knowledge of centuries. So suppose there are two people. One person goes and sits under the master and obtains knowledge of the ages and centuries and learns how to do things. The other person goes and works in a field, plowing a field. When they meet after 5 years, one person will know how to plow that field, but the other will have something that it takes centuries of life on this earth to receive. and he bypassed it all by connecting to a source. So it's not about time in the physical, it's about knowledge gained that goes past time. Listen to this. Knowledge limited to time will be limited by the years it takes to get there. Knowledge limited by time will be limited by the years it takes to get there. So if you want to get knowledge of math, science, history, geography, it takes anyone about 16 to 18 years, because that's how long it takes to go through school to get that knowledge. But that is the physical way to get knowledge. You receive an impartation, suddenly you have and know certain things you didn't. It happens. You get centuries in 5 minutes. But people who don't understand will say this is all about controlling and systems. It's about empowerment. Anyway, to become someone who has mastery over time and never be in a hurry and never procrastinate. Both those things are bad. So don't worry about what others say. Some will say you're wasting time. Some will say you're going too fast. But as long as you know your purpose, and your time, you are good. So you have to discover what has been placed for you in your time. That is the first purpose of life. That is the first purpose of life. That's the first objective of life. Peter says, 1 day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. So now, you have to understand that we operate in time on this earth in a linear fashion, meaning it goes one after the other. But God doesn't operate with the same linear time that we operate on. Time is created. Time didn't always exist. Let that sink in. Just like God created you, like God created a tree, He created time. It's hard to understand this because time is immaterial, but let that sink in. Before time and now and after time, there was only eternity. So we need to understand how God perceives time in order to be a commander of time. Another person who was like this is Joshua. Joshua 10, they were fighting some guys, I think Amorites, and it said, Joshua spoke and said in the sight of Israel, Sun, you stand still upon Gibeon, and moon, stand still in the valley of Ajalon. This one is one that controls time. God created time, and we have ways to mark time like years and hours and minutes, but the sun and moon are elements that help to only provide a measure of time. This guy, he commanded not just the sun but also the moon, and he told them exactly where to stand. One stand in this place, one stand in another place. Why? Because he needed more time. And it says, the sun stood still and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven and did not haste to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that or before or after it that the Lord listened to the voice of a man. Joshua understood there is the time coming for us to defeat these guys, but we don't have enough time. And we don't need to lose the sun. I said certain battles you only fight during the day. So he needed to extend that day and not let night come, so he stopped time. Joshua was crazier than we think. So if time was created for this realm, that means in other places, in other realms, there is no time or a different measure of time. So to have command over time, it's for people who can touch these truths. There's so much about time, right? People believe that time is the same for everyone because it governs all people and controls everything, but it's not true. Do you know that there are some particles? This is just to show you time is deeper. There are some particles that exist only in fractions of time in this world. They don't even exist in the time that we do. There is something called a muon. It's a subatomic particle. MUON. You can go and research. These are very small particles. Now listen, they don't exist in our seconds. They exist only in 2.2 microseconds, which is 2 millionths of a second. And they exist only when they travel close to the speed of light. Please listen to this. I'm laying the foundation for something very deep. They only exist when they travel close to the speed of light. So they survive in a different time that is within our time. And their time is not the same time as ours. And if they stop going at that speed of light, they start to decay and they go. But when they travel so fast, they can penetrate almost every surface. When they discovered this in science, it changed many things we understood about times. Now I'm going somewhere, stick with me. We know from Einstein that time slows down the faster you approach the speed of light. So the mastery of time requires these things. I spoke about the particles. They can penetrate any surface. And to do that, they have to go at the speed of light almost. And now I'm saying, the faster you go, the faster you approach the speed of light. And the faster you approach the speed of light, time slows down. Joshua was the original Flash. I don't know if you know of the character Flash, who can just go in a flash. He was the original Flash. Now listen, I'm going to go very deep and this is going to change your life. We all know this phrase, redeem the time. But this is deeper. Joshua made an extra day. Now, the word redeem in that verse, it means to buy up like a ransom or to rescue. So it's like time is held hostage and you are rescuing it. That's the spiritual meaning. Now, if you are paying a ransom to someone to redeem it, that means something is holding it hostage. Who is holding it hostage now? It's someone who controls the time. Now, there is an enemy that steals your time because that enemy found a way to control your time. And God is now telling you to redeem it. Who is the one that comes to steal? Satan is the one that comes to steal. And he uses certain creatures called worms in the spirit. I taught about what these are one time. The spiritual realm has a lot of creatures. It's a dark place and these things, they eat stuff, but they don't eat chicken or fish or vegetables. It's a different worm and there are moths. These are creatures that steal the time and the destiny of people. Now let's go deeper. I said light at a certain speed can penetrate anything. I said the faster you go, the more closer you get to the speed of light. And then I said light controls time. Because when you approach light and its speed, time slows down. Light is the only thing that can control time. Then I said, your destiny is held ransom by time and God is telling you to redeem the time, meaning ransom, to buy it. Then I said, if you have to ransom it, it means somebody is holding it, and the one that's holding it is the one that has eaten it or stolen it. I hope everybody is with me. So now we have to slow time. How? We have to approach the speed of light. We know that when we hit the speed of light, time freezes, meaning time becomes zero. This is theoretical because in this world nothing can go. They are, in that super collider, they are sending particles at the speed of light and they are trying to do experiments. But a lot of this is theoretical, but it's not for us because these are spiritual things. So you slow time by approaching the speed of light, and when you hit the speed of light, time freezes. That's how you go from one place to another in 1 second. You disappear here and reappear there 3,000 miles away. That's how angels travel. So angels travel with light. And that's why many times you see them as light. And that's why Satan transforms himself into light, because he is still trying to be like God. Please, this is so deep. Satan is still trying to be like God, and to be like God, he's trying to disguise himself as an angel of light, because angels travel with light, but he still doesn't have a level of understanding. Traveling at the speed of light helps you cover distances in no time. You leave here and you go, and I'm in South Africa, like that. That's how angels travel. That's how Satan is trying to travel, but he's trying to be omnipresent. But he doesn't understand that requires another level beyond the realms of light. Anyway, so you slow time by going close to light speed, and God tells us to redeem the time. Ephesians 5:15 says this: See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. We all know this verse. We all quote it. But let me show you something that's going to blow your mind now. This verse is cool, but you never stop to ask, how do I redeem the time? It's with what I explained. Now the verse starts with, see then that you walk up. When it starts with see then, it means it's referring to something else. So we have to check the previous verses. Now listen, verse 13, Ephesians 5. All things that are reproved are made manifest by the light. For whatsoever makes manifest is light. Wherefore he says, Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. So now go and redeem the time. I don't think people got it. Reprove here means admonish. It's talking about what has been made darkened or been admonished. And he says what has been made darkened will be made manifest. The word manifest means to make apparent or show forth, the Greek meaning. So it says something has been darkened or something has been stolen by the thief, in other words, and they have to be brought forth or made manifest so that you can have it. And the only way it is done is by light. So you redeem it by light, and what gives us that light is Christ. I feel like people are not catching, but if someone picks and truly understands, today you will redeem things. Everything is controlled by light, and light controls time. But light is more powerful than time, because light was outside of time. I said time was created, but light wasn't. God manifested light, but it was in him. So everything is controlled by light, and light controls time, and light is more powerful than time, because light was outside of time and before time, and light is what produced time. Light is what produced time. Even physically, only when the sun was created, time started to be recorded. So light produced time. And then spiritually we can go deeper. So once again, science came later and discovered what was already there. I don't think people caught what I was trying to explain from the verse, but go back and study. The verse is saying you have to redeem the time. And the way you redeem the time and bring forth, manifest what was darkened is only through light, and Christ is what gives light. So in other words, the Bible long ago was teaching what science only discovered a few decades ago. That when you approach the speed of light, time stops or time slows down. I'm still seeing blank faces, but we'll keep going. Go back and meditate on it. So you see now what Joshua did in the spirit. So now you can alter your time. You can redeem your time with light. But we are trying to pray and beg and cry. That's the wrong way. That's the wrong way. Because what has been taken needs to be made manifest and be brought forth again. And it's only with light. It's not by prayer. Joshua needed the time and he commanded it and it stood still. So please believe me, I know that your time can be redeemed. Now what Satan doesn't know is the secret of God being in all places at all times, because he went past light. Angels travel with light. Satan tries to do that. We can do that. Light helps you to go from one place to another in 1 second, but it's not omnipresence. If you leave here and go to another place in 1 second, then you're no longer here, so you're not omnipresent. The only way that God can do it is he went above the realms of light to a place where he calls unapproachable light. But the realms of light are below that, where angels operate. So you can't be omnipresent, and that one is unapproachable. But we can be like light. Now listen, there's a time for everything. But certain times are connected together. And the lack of knowledge of this makes us not succeed. People think if something is not happening, something is not happening. But no, waiting is not a passive activity. The world makes us think something is not happening. You're still not getting a job. Don't ever believe that lie. Every time has something. And you can miss what is in your next time if you don't take this time. 1 Peter 5:6. Humble yourself therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. So listen, there's a time for exaltation. And God will bring that. But the time of exaltation is not dependent on God. It's dependent on the time of humbling. So if you're simply praying for exaltation without receiving the time of humbling, exaltation won't come, because it's a dependency. Humble yourself therefore that he may exalt you. It's conditional. Why we are not being exalted is because in the time for humbling, we were crying, nothing is happening. We didn't catch the time. Always look for the formula that was established by God. Don't simply go and pray and cry like a dog every single time with no intelligence. Everything requires the formula that is for that thing. If you want to be exalted, you have to humble yourself. Jesus went far above all realms because he went down to hell. If you want to go where Jesus went, but you're unwilling to go through hell, you can never get there. So time for man in this existence can go fast or slow, but there's one thing it cannot do. It cannot go backward, because it's a linear time. It always goes forward. There's only one thing that can deal with stopping time and making it go backward. It's light. It's the light of God. I hope you can see how I'm moving into physical and spiritual, and hoping you can catch the two. Remember, for Hezekiah, he said, there's a sign. He said, it's not a big deal for time to move forward. He said, show me a sign where the time is moving backward, where the sun goes backward on the dial. So now, everybody in this earth is operating with 24 hours. How do we get the spiritual intelligence to operate with 25 hours? To create more time, like Joshua did, to have an advantage over the enemies. And in life, it's by reaching the light. When you go back in this coming week with this knowledge, be observant. Listen to what you're saying, listen to what others are saying, and see how many times you speak about time, and think of the deeper meaning, because these are embedded in our language, because language was created many centuries ago. So we are using words that we ourselves don't understand the meaning. Let me show you. Daniel chapter 1. Let me lay a foundation to what I'm going to say. We may not be able to move at the speed of light today, but at least we should start moving quicker. So if we are here moving subject to all the vicissitudes of this earth, and this is the speed of light, we can't just jump. We don't have that maturity, but let's start slowly moving. When you go faster, you will have an advantage over others, and you will multiply things. You will multiply time, and you will multiply knowledge. That's why I was giving the example of the master and the apprentice. From where I live to New York, it may be 500 miles. If I take a train, it takes 3.5 hours. If I take a bus, it takes 8 hours. If I take a fast car, it takes 2 hours. If I take a sports car. If I fly on a jet, it's 35 minutes. The distance never changed. It was that same 500 miles. It's not like when I stepped on a jet, the road got smaller. No. Me being able to go faster made the distance seem smaller, and time was smaller. So I didn't play with the distance. I didn't go and dig the road and make it smaller. I didn't play with the distance. I played with something that could manipulate time, which was the vehicle that helps me move through time. Daniel 1:20. In all manners of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers in all his realm. Did you ever wonder why we use the word times? Time deals in multiplication. When we learn multiplication tables, what do we say? 2 times 2. So it's 2. If something is done to that 2, it becomes 4. Time multiplies things. How many times have we all groaned and complained with the tests that show, if it takes Bob 5 minutes to go from here to there, how much time will it take to do this? All this, I hated math. But time helps to increase things. So the ability to move past time or manipulate time quicker is what caused Daniel to be 10 times more powerful, because they knew how to go and get the knowledge in the spirit, where these guys were getting it in a shorter way. If you just come and listen every Saturday, I am nothing great, but I come here trying to be faithful to what God has given me. But if you take this now with the knowledge every week, you can accelerate. They used spiritual intelligence to move past what others could do. Do you know why? See, time is at the heart of everything, and time determines everything. Do you know why all these pagan kings, the first time something happened, they always called magicians? Why? Because magicians deal with space and time. It all comes down to time, space, and matter. Do you now realize how we are wasting time with stupid things? These other guys know it. What do magicians do when a magician is putting... They create illusions. They make things disappear. They have a ball in their hands, which is matter, and it's gone. They are manipulators of that. That's why kings, anytime, he always called people who dealt with time. In some instances, you can manipulate time, in my example. In other instances, you can manipulate matter. It's when they had chains and suddenly the chains passed through them and they walked out. It's all about time. Today we are just scratching the surface. There are many deep mysteries in time and about time, but that's for another time. Not for today. Time is strange. All of us will say, I know time, but we can never explain it. Now, wisdom is the ability to affect time. So I want everybody now in the next, 1 week, 2 weeks, for the rest of your life, think about these things. Time is the most valuable commodity, but we don't realize it. The ones that realize how to use time control the world. Someone who's 15 years old does not think about time at all. But someone who is 90 years old thinks about time very differently. Why do we need to be commanders of time? Because time will never stop until time is ended. Your life ends when your time, what? When your time runs out. Meaning you have a specific amount of time and it doesn't stop and it will end. So in that time we can expand it and multiply it and make it slow down to do more. Or redeem things that were lost. And you need wisdom to understand how to control and master it, and the ability to control and use light from God in order to do it. A man can be a billionaire. There is one thing common to every man at one point in time. Before someone dies, there is not a single person who will ask for more money. There's not a single person who will say, I want more degrees. There's not a single person that will say, I want more women. There's only one thing they ask, it's more time. Listen, please. What attacks your time attacks your life. What attacks your time attacks your life. What steals your time steals your life. If you can get up every morning, please do this. It's an instruction I'm giving you. Everybody, write this down on a piece of paper, and wherever you're sleeping, tape it next to your bed, so that when you get up, you will get up with this understanding and understand the time of the day and ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom for that day. Everything takes time, so time has to be carefully used. What steals your time, what attacks your time, steals and attacks your life. There is a time now when your wasted years can be redeemed. Many people waste their destiny and never have another chance. But the most foolish person in the world is one who has another chance for their destiny and decides to waste it again. And Satan is very happy to help. Say, listen to me, demons are always looking at their watches. But we have no clue what time it is. They had the power to negotiate with Jesus himself. And Jesus listened to what the demon said and obeyed the demon. Think about that. Because time controls everything. Now listen. Please listen to this. When time is stolen or taken from you or attacked, you lose your connection to God. And you lose your ability to listen to God. And you will turn and listen to Satan. It doesn't matter who you are, I don't care. It's for me as well. The Israelites were in bondage. I'm finishing in 2 minutes. The Israelites were in bondage. Moses came with Aaron. He called all the elders. He said, God sent me. This is what I'm going to do. They were like, amazing, amazing, amazing. We are all with you. Go and talk to Pharaoh. Moses went and started talking to Pharaoh and started doing things. When Pharaoh got mad, he said, these people think, who do they think they are? If they have so much time to go and worship their God, let's take time away from them. Don't give them bricks anymore. Let them go and search for stuff. The minute their time was taken away, they came to Moses and said, sorry, don't do this anymore. We don't want it. When your time is stolen, your connection to God is stolen. Please, this is a subtle trick the devil uses that Christians don't know. But they think, oh, no, we are hearing from God. No. Pharaoh understood. He said, they have so much time to cry out to their God. Let me take their time and then we'll see what will happen. They were playing spiritual games, all these people. When time was stolen, the possibility of their redemption was lost. They were so blind to it, even though they could see the miracles being done. And they said, Moses, don't go and do it anymore. Why are you interfering? Just leave us. Their destiny, they were willing to let it go and give it up once again and be in bondage. Because they didn't understand the spiritual dynamics at play. So when God is restoring, He says He will restore the years. He never says, I will restore the things in those years. That's your job. Let me tell you why. When something is stolen from you, you lose that thing. Let's say thieves came and stole your nice TV, 80-inch flat screen TV, stolen. Even though it's stolen from you, it is still somewhere. It didn't disappear. It just disappeared from your place and your vision, but it still exists somewhere with the thief. So in your life, what was stolen still exists somewhere, but it needs someone to locate it and bring it back. God is restoring the years. He never promised to restore the things of those years. So you have to go and take it now. It depends who the thief was. Some things cannot be restored because the time has just passed. It's impossible. Let me give an example. Suppose someone is 80 years old and they realize all this stuff. And God says, I'll restore the years. But their destiny was to be the president of that country. He can't get it back. Because in the constitution or the rules or the laws or whatever, it may stipulate only someone who's below X 70 years. So you can't get that back. Not everything can be redeemed. It's only time that's redeemed. So time carries moments that you have to seize, and you seize it with light. Philip moved from one place to another in the blink of an eye. You can miss your time being in the right place with no knowledge, but you can redeem all the years in a wrong place with the right knowledge. Let me explain. Story of the prodigal son. The elder guy was in the father's house and he was the eldest. He didn't use any authority. He behaved like a spoiled child. The younger one messed up. Not only that, he wasted his father's hard-earned wealth. But he came back and redeemed it and more by taking the right posture with the right information. He embodied 1 Peter 5:6. He knew there's a time for exaltation, but it's preceded by another time, which is the time of humbling. He knew humbling is the secret to exaltation. So when he came, he didn't ask for anything. He truly humbled himself. And he was exalted. Meanwhile, the other guy was in the right place all along. He just had to reach out and take the authority and use it. But he wasted all that time. At the other one, wasted all the time, but he redeemed everything. Times are determined beforehand. Everything is determined beforehand. Jesus was just playing this. He was just acting in accordance with a pre-written script. Problem is we don't know our script. Let's go to Acts 17. I'm going to finish. Acts 17, I know this was in the middle of Paul's address. Okay, around 25 and 26, it says this. He giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation. The times are determined beforehand. But these times can be disrupted. And you have to mess with it now in order to bring it back. This is what we call a miracle. A miracle happens when you are able to manipulate time. There are many people who are the mightiest people in healing, but to teach how healing happens, that's different. Sometimes cancer is healed by removing something like a spirit. All times the disease is there because there was a time when the disease entered or started in your body. Some miracles are made by redeeming the time, meaning there's someone who has to go back to 8 years ago when it started and bring back the you that was there before the cancer entered. And you have one more generation in your life now. This is the way it happens. Prophets are creatures who go across time. So going back to what we said, time controls everything. You redeem your time by light. The closer we can get to light, the more we can control time. And wisdom helps us in that. When you let more light in you, you start to deal in light with the beings of light. And now when you start to operate here, whatever light controls starts to come under your control. This is the key. This is not a teaching to be listened to one time. And I urge you, please, there are certain things I say, please go back and listen again. Or if you have notes, or if you remember, go and do your own deep study on this. Understand the spiritual meaning. Why? Because some revelations we come are, oh my God, that's such a great revelation and it's deep and it's okay. But it doesn't affect your life so much. This one though, this one affects everything. I was one that lived in another generation of my life. Life was going nowhere, yet I was successful in all things from the world's viewpoint. But I wasted the years that everybody says I was successful were completely wasted. I let go of everything and I moved closer to light. The more I moved closer to light, the more I was received into light. The more I was received into light, I started engaging more with beings of light and the ones that control light. The more time I spent there, when I came back to my world, I realized that things in this world operated or obeyed my voice. Because I was coming from a place of light. It's the key to everything. All of this is there in what our Lord Jesus has told us, in what the Word has told us. Now we need to go into it. May God help us, and He will.